All right, peace be upon you, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? Just making sure I'm recording. Yep. Now, in today's video, I just want to speak about war. And I know war, at least in our culture today, our secularized, pacified society, is seen as the worst, most unalloyed evil, the worst thing that could possibly happen, completely and totally unnecessary. And I just want to go through not only the Quran, but many of the ancient texts and traditions around the world that are revered around the world to show you that our ancestors did not believe in this. They didn't see war as the worst thing that could happen, but in fact, a crucible to show and bring out the best within men. So, war, and specifically holy wars, let me pull up an image that really exemplifies what I'm saying. Okay, right here. And obviously, forget the Christian themes and the crosses. You could just put that aside. But this is just a caricature of a holy war, a war done in the name of the Almighty. Wars are honored in every culture. Everywhere around the world, you read the most sacred texts, and they hold up holy wars in the highest esteem. And when I'm talking about war, I'm not talking about senseless carnage and killing for no reason, but war or fighting based on principle. I'm not talking about your MMA match of just, and MMA is great for training and building overall fortitude and athleticism and strength. I love it for that, but I'm not talking about two guys senselessly bashing each other's brains in for a prize, but rather war to defend the nation, to defend the family, to defend the honor, to stand up for God if you're being oppressed, war against tyranny. In every culture and holy text around the world, it is seen as one of the greatest things. War and fighting is really, it's a crucible. It's a crucible to test the merit, resolve, and spirit of men. It brings out the best and it weeds out the worst. It brings out the best and it weeds out the worst people. It shows the cowards and the treacherous and the foolish and the unfaithful and the ungodly for who they are. War is really, historically speaking, it's an event where men are known for who they are. And like I said, I'm going to show you this. It's in all of the most sacred texts. So obviously we will begin with the perfect criteria, the Holy Quran. And in the Quran, God holds up martyrs, those who die in the path of God. So let's say they're leaving their idolatrous society to go live with the early believers, the early believing community, and they die along the way, or let's say they're martyred, they're killed for their faith. These people in the Quran, they're held in the highest esteem. God honors them and speaks so well of them. And we don't see this mentality of war is always bad, violence is always bad. No, quite the reverse in the Quran. Violence for a justified cause is seen as an amazing thing. So let's pull up that, what's that Quran verse? Think them not dead. Okay, so go to Surah Al-Imran 169, chapter 3. Go to reader.quranite 3169. Okay, so we read, in the name of God, the Almighty and the Merciful. Those who said of their brothers when they stayed back, had they obeyed us, they would have not have been killed. So these are the cowards. They're saying, oh, if these people, they went and died, if they had just stayed back and been cowards like us, they wouldn't have been killed, right? They're saying they shouldn't have gone into the war. They shouldn't have gone into the battle. And what is God saying? Say to them, then avert yourselves from death if you be truthful, and think not of those who are killed in the way of God, the Sabil-Allah, as dead. Don't think of them as dead. Nay, they are alive, receiving provision from their Lord. They're receiving rizq from their Lord, exulting in what God has bestowed upon them of his bounty, and rejoicing in those behind them who are yet to join them, that no fear will be upon them, nor will they grieve, rejoicing in favor and bounty from God, and that God causes not to be lost the reward of the believers. Those who responded to God and the messenger after injury had befallen them, for those of them as do good and are in taqwa, prudent fear, is a great reward. So God here is telling us that all the people who died in those justified wars, don't think them as dead, but they're living and they're in the highest state. I don't know how this works or, in what way this is happening, but somehow they're at this moment receiving provision from their Lord and they're in a blissful state. And it's not just the Quran that echoes this sentiment. Actually, let me show you one more verse in the Quran, which is the one that came to my mind. It was, what is it? Quran verse, God loves those who fight as a structure pressed firm. Something like that. Yes. '61 verse 4. Saf. God loves those who fight in his cause in ranks as though they were a compacted structure. Remember, I don't have to show you the verse, but also when Moses tells the children of Israel to enter into the promised land, they say, "No, Moses, we're not going to go there. It's those people, they're scary, they're going to kill us," and God criticizes them. And this, like I'm going to show you right now, this is not just something that's within the Quran, but this is a sentiment echoed through all of the ancient holy texts. And it's understandably, we can understand why that is the case. Why is war shown in such a high light? War based on principle. Again, not senseless carnaging, rape, kill, murder, all that stuff. No, but war on principle. It's because what other way is there to show that you truly believe your principles and you are convicted of them than laying down your life, being willing to make the ultimate sacrifice for your principles? It shows in the truest sense your sincerity, whether you have it or not. It's a beautiful thing. Let's go to the Bible. Let's get right here. Bible. The whole Torah, right? Not Taurat, but really we can say the Pentateuch, the first 5 books. It's pretty much after the children of Israel, they get their law. The whole of the Pentateuch is pretty much preparing them for the war with the Canaanites. And you can read the book of Deuteronomy, the last book of the Pentateuch, and God is laying down the law, and it's almost like hyping up or leading up to this war with the evil-doing people to destroy their idols, to break down their places of worship, and to establish the worshiping of God alone. The whole Bible is about this. Or I should say that the whole beginning of the Bible. You have even in the book of Revelation. Let's go to Revelation. Book of Revelation. Right here. You have described within the book of Revelation a massive final war that will engulf all of humanity. This war, and I don't necessarily believe in these narratives, but just, again, viewing combat based on principle in this grand light. This war and fighting with the Antichrist, and the mark of the beast is going to happen, and the whole world will be engulfed in this battle. And it's not just Abrahamic faiths too. You have this in the Bhagavad Gita as well. So the Bhagavad Gita is a portion of the Hindu epic called the Mahabharata. Bhagavad Gita. So you can think of the Mahabharata, it's this massive compendium of the histories and traditions of the people of India, the gods and goddesses, the false deities that they used to worship, the legendary warriors and heroes and sages and monks and poets and whatnot. And within this huge compendium of the Mahabharata, the part that is seen as the most sacred is the Bhagavad Gita. And what is the whole Bhagavad Gita based on? The Bhagavad Gita is based on, so this character here, Arjuna is about to go into war, and he's actually turning away from it. He has to fight this war. It's based on principle, but he's saying to himself, I've read this in previous videos, he's just like, oh yeah, I can't do this war, I can't fight in it because I see cousins going against cousins and family members fighting against family members. My heart can't take it. I'm not built for this, and I'm just going to go out and live in the wilderness as a monk, just living on alms and what people give me. I'm just going to become a total quietist and pacifist. And what is Krishna saying to Arjuna? He's saying, no, you are a Kashtri. You are from the Kshatriya caste. Go pick up your battle and fight upon principle. Don't be afraid, because in the end, this life is short. In the hereafter, that's what matters more. You will be resurrected again. That's what Krishna is telling him. And of course, we can put aside the reincarnation and things like that, but just a general idea of not worrying about this life, because what is to come is more important. And the Bhagavad Gita, which is the peak of the Mahabharata, which is the holiest set of texts in the Hindu religion. The Bhagavad Gita, which is its peak, it's all about war and a man who's trying to run away. And Krishna, the wise teacher, is telling him, no, pick up your sword and battle. You're fighting based on principle. And for those of you who want to look into it, the name of this specific war is the Kurukshetra War. So the Kurukshetra War, also called the Mahabharata War, is a war described in the Hindu epic poem, the Mahabharata, arising from a dynastic struggle between two groups of cousins, the Kauravas and the Pandavas, for the throne of Hastinapur. The war is used as the context for the dialogues of the Bhagavad Gita. So again, the peak of one of the greatest stories told in the Indian subcontinent, which many people are poring over to this day, the Bhagavad Gita, which is the pinnacle of it, is really the war, the great fight between these two families for the throne of Hastinapur. Then we can go into Ramayana, the Ramayana, which has the war between Ram and Ravana. This is another Indian Hindu epic. It leads to this great fight between Rama versus Ravana. And you can see these people, again, because this stuff is so legendary, people are even acting this out. And these stories are so influential, man. It's not just in India. There are people all the way in Southeast Asia, Thailand, Philippines who act out these stories. And they even have temples to their deities. This stuff, it's influenced the world. And again, throw out the idolatry, but you can see these stories are not, that have stirred the hearts of mankind. They're not primarily built on peace. They're built on war. The heroism, the fighting, the picking up your sword or your arrow. Let's go back. I want to read that little blurb. So the battle between Rama and Ravana is a pivotal event in the Hindu epic, the Ramayana. Ram, the prince of Ayodhya, considered the seventh manifestation of the Hindu deity Vishnu, who fought against Ravana to rescue his wife Sita. So this was war based on principle. Again, this man had stole his wife and he was going to go rescue her back. And then Ravana, the demon king of Lanka, known for his 10 heads and 20 arms, who abducted Sita, ultimately faced defeat at the hands of Rama. And then we can even go into the Iliad, right? The Battle of Troy. Iliad, battle. Let me go on Google Images because Brave just sucks. Okay, for pulling up images. Iliad, Battle of Troy. Right? The famous Trojan horse. So you have this great battle that ensues between the two armies, and this is the basis of the entire story of the Iliad, the epic poem of the Greeks, which they poured over and received much inspiration and spiritual nourishment from. Even the poetic Edda of the Norse people, I'm not going to leave them out as well. You have this legend of Ragnarok. Ragnarok is a foretold series of impending events so that the world is going to lead and culminate to this great climax of Ragnarok, including a great battle in the numerous great Norse mythological figures which will perish, including Odin, Thor, Tyr, Freyr, Heimdall, and Loki. It will entail a catastrophic series of natural disasters, including the burning of the world, and culminate in the submersion of the world underwater. So we can even see the Noahic influence in this, the flood that God caused upon the earth. After these events, the world will rise again, cleansed and fertile. The surviving and returning deities will meet, and the world will be repopulated by two human survivors, Lif and, I don't even know how to pronounce this, Lifprasir. Ragnarok is an important event in Norse mythology and has been the subject of scholarly discourse and theory in the history of Germanic studies. So yeah, you have Ragnarok as well, a great war which will ensue, and people told and spoke of these legends. All of these books have in common a war for, whether you talk about the Quran, which is the superior book, and then all these other broken hadiths around the world in the Bible, Bhagavad Gita, Norse religion, Ramayana. they have in common this idea of a war for a higher cause. Again, I'm not talking about senseless violence and carnage. I'm not speaking about this. Let's pull it up. I keep getting this song recommended to me on YouTube. 50 Cent, I Am Not Gang Gang. This ridiculous song. Yeah, just senseless violence for material goods, for the life of this world, killing people with no principle, no control, no nothing. You know, I am not gang gang. I am not blah blah, whatever this guy is saying. I'm not talking about your street violence selling drugs, this crummy, scummy, in my hood thing. Nor am I talking again about rape, pillage, murder, torture, but this is war upon principle. War guided by principle in all of the most respected texts in the world. It is seen as the ultimate and peak human experience, ladies and gentlemen. War upon principle is seen as a place where the ultimate realizations are made. So in the Quran, you have the martyrs. They're not dead, but they're living. They had some of the greatest realizations dying in battle. In the Bible, the children of Israel, they learned so much fighting against these evil-doing people. They learned to have faith in their Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, the greatest revelations are bestowed upon Arjuna by Krishna during this war. And then you can take all of the messages of the past, again, the most respected texts in the world, and compare it with what we are taught today. Let's pull up a photo of the United Nations. Oops. Go back to Google Images. United Nations peacekeeping. So you see these people, they're all about peace, peace. Even hear that song, you remember it? It was a war. Who? What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. And this is not what I'm seeing the ancients talk about, because there are cases where war is completely justified and in fact necessary. And this whole idea, like you'll see the United Nations and these pernicious, devilish pan-international organizations around the world. They'll talk about, oh, you know, by 2030 we'll have world peace. By 2040, 2050, we'll have a world without any war, without any conflict. And my question is, why would you want that? What they mean by world peace is world compromise. Okay, that's what you have to get. I'm not talking about getting along with people and being kind, but there are certain instances where you have to fight. Fighting is the best option because it's either that or compromising your principles. World peace for them means everybody shave off a little bit of their beliefs here, a little bit of their beliefs there, and we just get together in this like secular, scientistic, atheist utopia. And there's no way that that's going to happen. I'd rather fight and die than have to be participating in such a society. In the present life, world peace is not an option. Let's pull up again. War, fighting, images. Yeah, that's a nice one, like a little naval combat ship. In the present life, world peace is not an option. Fighting is just hardwired in our nature. And again, I'm not saying you can't try to be equitable and peaceful with people, but even if we try our best, in this life, fights are just going to happen. Let's just think about things for a second. Oops. Imagine we had our own, us Quran aloners, we had our own country, our own civilization, and we were establishing places of worship and mosques, and just we were promoting our beliefs out to the society. Now, like obviously we as Quran aloners, we want our beliefs promoted. We don't want Christianity promoted. We don't want Hinduism promoted. We don't want anything else or atheism. We second and are biased towards the Quranic faith. Now imagine there's another group out there that wants their beliefs promoted. They don't want the Quran promoted. They want their Christianity or they want their Hinduism. I mean, like, how are we going to resolve that? Both of our beliefs can't be promoted in society. Somebody has to take the dominance, and that can only be solved through fighting. That's just how it goes. We want our beliefs promoted, they want theirs, and we're going to have to fight it out. Even the secular atheists, let's pull it up again. United Nations World peace. Even these people, they clamor about peace and justice and love and everybody holding hands together. They too want their beliefs promoted, and they're not unbiased. They push their secular atheism, their scientism. Last time I checked, the United Nations and all these schools that they're establishing around the world, they're not teaching Quranic doctrine. They're not teaching to worship the one God. They're not teaching natural holistic health. They're not teaching the true shape of the earth. They're not teaching that we came from Adam. No, they're teaching their evolution. They're teaching their globe earth nonsense, their scientism, their pharmaceuticals, their secular education and secular values, and that men and women are equal and all this stuff. They're teaching what they want to be promoted in society. So even they talk about equality, but they don't really mean that. These soldiers right here, they're not here to fight for equality. They're here to fight for secular atheism. And again, how is this problem going to be solved? If everybody wants their ideas promoted, there's only one way. If nobody's willing to compromise or budge their beliefs, we're going to have to fight for it. And all of this even brings me to the movie 300 Spartan. Let me pull that up. 300 Spartan. This movie it was one of those flicks that had a spiritual component to it. Just the heroism, the courage, the valor. Again, this Leonidas who died fighting on principle. All he had to do, physically speaking, was lower his head before Xerxes, who claimed to be the master of the universe. But that that action would defy his principles. And he lived and died by his word. He pretty much walked into a death match, and he's remembered for it for years and generations to come. And I remember that one line in the movie where the guy says, it's not fear that grips him, only a restlessness, a heightened sense of things. And I just found that so inspirational and uplifting, because it's not, when you're in those moments, it isn't fear, but rather it's a heightened sense of things. And it goes back to what I was saying about the Bhagavad Gita, the Quran, war as a place where the highest realizations are made, the highest stakes are laid down, and you know yourself for who you are, whether you truly live by principle and believe the things you do or you don't. Because if you don't, if you have any degree of doubt about your principles, you are going to run away and just fold under that kind of pressure. And there's something about it, the war drums and the chargers snorting, the horses, or even with the tanks revving up their engines going forward, the war chants, brothers side by side, shoulder to shoulder, going into a battle against an evil-doing enemy, guided by their principle. This stirs, all of these things, they stir the deepest parts of man. The brotherhood, the camaraderie, and like just being beside your brothers in arms and dying by them. I heard this interesting quote. It was that we will die for our family, so we will die for our wives and children, but we will die with our brothers by our side. And again, that shows loyalty above anything else when two brothers are willing to lay their life down beside one another. You can't replicate that kind of virtue and character development in a safe and peaceful compromise environment. It doesn't happen. And one thing that I wanted to say was, in the past, when two armies met each other, you can think of that verse in the Quran, when the two hosts met. Let me pull up an image illustrating what I'm saying. Ancient armies fighting. Right, so again, we're told that war is the greatest tragedy, that there's no situation in which it is justified, because again, this assumption of world peace and world happiness and world compromise, or I should say this value system or value set, it's built on the assumption that suffering is inherently bad. In war, there is suffering, there is pain, there is loss, but that isn't necessarily a bad thing. God tells us in the Quran that, do you think, are you going to get to the gardens? You think, are you going to get to the gardens without having to sacrifice and go through the hardship that the people before you went through? No. Anything in life that is worth value, a pearl of great price, as it were, a treasure that is worth possessing, it requires sacrifice, it requires pain. And let's find an image showing two armies fighting to kind of explain this concept. Right here, okay. So let's say you have this army right here from the west and this army from the east, or vice versa. This army from the east, this army from the west. And I know this is not historically accurate, but just bear with me for now. So this army from the east and this army from the west, they have their set of deities they believe in, and they believe in one God, or they have their faith and these people have their faith. This wasn't just a fight for land and resources and to protect the dignity of our women and to protect our families and our cities. This was also a demonstration as to whose gods or God or faith was more powerful than the other. So these people here believe in one God. These people here believe in multiple deities. They're pagans. When these people end up defeating those, they prove that their gods are either non-existent or just demons, or, yeah, like I said, they don't even exist at all, or they're weak, they possess no power. And this is the true God of the heavens and the earth. By their victory, it was their deity, their God, their creator that gave them the victory. So there was always a spiritual principle behind war, and you can only have that level of proof when the stakes are so high, when you lay your life on the line, when two people sword and shield in hand, or two people guns in hand with their battle armor and everything like that, when they go at each other face to face, they're showing their true belief in their faith, and whoever wins ends up the victor is shown to be truth, that my God is better than yours, or that yours doesn't even exist. Mine is more powerful. You should worship my deity. And so far, we can see in the history of mankind, there's one God that's voice has shouted the loudest out of any other name in the history of mankind, and that is by far the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. How many gods throughout history? Let's pull up gods of history. False gods, idols. Google images. Gods of history. Okay. How many gods throughout history have been worshipped and then forgotten utterly? Probably countless, hundreds of thousands of them. Cities that were taken over, and then their deities, which they made up, they invented, which were really just jinn influencing them, demons influencing them. Their names are forgotten. We don't remember them anymore. And whose name has dominated the heavens and the earth and subdued the whole world? It is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the one creator of the heavens and the earth. And this had to happen through war, through battle, through conquest, through promoting the worship of the one almighty God, and all these other armies being subdued and their deities that go down with them. And this, like I said, it's a demonstration of who is truthful and who is not. Because if your gods are true, then why didn't they save you? Why did they let their temples and their places of worship and their idols all get destroyed? And let's read chapter 8 in the Quran. I forgot to mention this before when we were reading the Quran. Chapter 8, or Surah Al-Anfal, the spoils of war. And you will see God holding up war as a glorious and holy action when war is based on high principles. So let's go to reader.Quranite. Read the first few verses of chapter 8 and tell me, is this a pacifist message or is this a militant message? Because when I read the Quran, I see that the ideal man, he's not a quietist or a pacifist. He's a peaceful man. He tries to make peace with people whenever possible. But sometimes peace is just not an option. You have to fight. And when I read the Quran, I can see that the model is a saint warrior, a man who is strong, who is capable, able to defend his nation, carries arms on him. I believe it is our Quranic duty to carry arms. God says in the Quran that the kafirin, the evildoers, the deniers, they would wish that you be unarmed, that you lay aside all your arms so they can attack you at once. God says to take your precautions. So the Quranic message is a military message, and the Quranic man, or the ideal Quranic man, is a saint warrior. He's a warrior able to fight and capable, but also he is guided by high morals and he's not unjust. So we see in the Quran, we give asylum to the people who seek asylum, the women and the children. We don't abuse. We're kind to the prisoner, the wayfarer, the traveler. And really our only right is against the evildoers, those who have transgressed against us and stolen our rights, those people. So it's the saint warrior model, because you kind of have two different people in the ancient world, and both of them exemplify some aspects of the Quranic man, because we're a synthesis of the two. So you have the saint, who's kind of like monkish. He's out in the wilderness. He's not really doing much. He wakes up in the morning and then he, prays for 3 hours. Then he goes and feeds the birds. Then he lives on alms. Then he, I don't know, walks in the mountains and remembers God. Then he goes back to his monastery and goes to bed. And there's virtue in that. Naturally, the remembrance of God, the peace, the wisdom. And then you also have the savage of the ancient world, who was a warrior. He was able to fight, but he would kill, he would rape all the women that he wanted to. He would take the children captive, abuse people, treat them with indignity and shame. The Quran is the Quranic man is a synthesis of the two. He has the strength of the warrior, but the high morals of the saint. We are the saint warrior, and that's really where the whole concept of Sant Sipahi in the Sikh tradition comes from. The saint warrior. It's the Quranic man. So let's read through chapter 8 and tell me if this is a pacifist, quietist message or militant. So we read, "In the name of God, the Almighty and the Merciful. They ask thee about the spoils of war. Say thou, the spoils of war are for God and his messenger. So be in prudent fear of God, and make right in what is between you, and obey God and his messenger, if you be believers. The believers are but those who, when God is remembered, their hearts are afraid, and when his proofs are recited to them, it increases them in faith, and in their Lord they place their trust." So what kind of a scenario would force you in the most extreme way to place your trust in your Lord? Naturally, war, combat, battle. "Those who uphold the Salah, and of what we have provided them they spend. It is they who are the believers in truth, and they have degrees with their Lord, and forgiveness and a noble provision. Like as thy Lord brought thee forth from thy house in truth, and a faction among the believers was averse, disputing with thee concerning the truth after it had become clear, as if they were being driven to death when they were looking on." So here we have an instance where God had revealed privately to the messenger that the believers are going to go to war against this evil-doing people, and then the messenger relays this information to his congregation, and now many of them are clamoring. They're murmuring. They're saying, "Oh, I don't want to go. I'm afraid," as if they were being driven to death when looking on. So their cowardice was taking over. "And when God promised you one of the two groups, that it would be yours, and you wish that the unarmed one might be yours, let's go take the unarmed village because those people are easy. But God willed to establish the truth by his words, and to cut off the root of the kafirin," or the deniers, the blasphemers, "that he might establish the truth and break vanity to nothing, though the lawbreakers were averse." So I'm seeing a very strong militant message here. We establish a truth and destroy vanity. Now, when the Quran says "La ikraha fi din," there is no compulsion in faith or deen or doctrine. Yes, people have the right to believe what they want. We can't force anyone to assent to the Quran or to the Bible or to anything. That's no problem. But it doesn't mean all beliefs are equal in our society. Clearly, we have a bias towards one faith, and in a Quranic society, there is no room for idolatry, idols, places of worship that have been tainted with false gods. No, these need to be broken down. Freedom of faith, you can believe what you want, but not freedom of promotion, not freedom of public teaching. There is one God that is publicly promoted in the Quranic society, and that is the creator of the heavens and the earth, the one true creator of all mankind. And to justify what I'm saying, like, the Quran is not teaching secular atheism, it's not, or secular humanism, it's not teaching separation of government and government and faith. No, the government or the administration or the military is directly tied by the faith, because the faith is what gives the government and the administration and the leaders and the commanders and the chief the principles through which they are to govern and take care of their society. Faith, this whole concept, this modern idea of separation of church and state, this is foreign to the Quran. The state has to be guided by the faith. It has to have the same faith as the people. And you can see with the Quran over and over the exalting of martyrs, the exalting of people who die in the way of God. And, in our society, we cannot allow falsehood to be promoted. That isn't the case. Like, there's no instance, even when I read of the children of Israel, I don't see this freedom of religion thing, like total freedom to promote whatever you want, whenever you want. I don't see that. When Moses comes down from the mountain and he finds the children of Israel worshiping the calf, does he say, oh, well, they're going to worship their gods and that's okay, and we're going to worship our deity, the one true God of all mankind? No, that's not all. He went down and then he saw Aaron, and first he wrongly assumed that Aaron allowed them to do this, and Aaron had no part in it in the end. He grabbed him by the beard and said, what is going on? I placed these people under your charge. How did you let them do this? And then he's like, don't blame me. I tried my best. They went and did this of their own accord. And then he goes and he confronts the Samiti and says, oh, what is your case, Samiti? And Samiti says, I see what they see not. And he's the one who built this idol and whatnot. And then Moses casts out the Samiti, destroys the idol utterly. There's no instance of freedom of religious expression here. I should say freedom of religious promotion. He destroyed their religion and established the worship of one God. Why? Because at that time he had authority over the children of Israel. And it's all about where we have authority and where our prerogative is to apply those principles. So obviously I can't go to some random person's house and destroy their idols. And the reason for that is I don't have authority over that, but I can in my household. Let's say, God forbid, I had a child who brought home an idol of Jesus or a statue of Mary or a statue of Vishnu. Now, this is my household. As a father, I have the right to, and my right is reserved to sanctify my place of residence of any idolatry and any graven images. I can destroy that. There's no freedom of a religious expression and teaching in the home. There's one faith that's practiced here. In that case, Moses, he had authority over the children of Israel, so he could go and destroy their idols because he had command over them. You have the case of Solomon. Solomon was going to go and promote the worship of one God to the Queen of Saba, right? This whole notion that we are to just respect people's beliefs and that we shouldn't try to promote and bring our beliefs out into the world wherever we have authority. I don't believe in that at all. I don't see that in the Quran. Another example of that is Abraham. Abraham was in his community, in his society. He destroyed the idols of his people. There was no freedom of religion in his mind, and he promoted the worship of one God. And when his people rejected, okay, whatever, no problem. I'm going to go on somewhere else. But I see in the Quran more than just, I should say, getting along with people and holding hands in this compromised utopia of secularism and humanism and world peace. I see the upholding of fighting for truth and promoting truth, at least allowing truth to be heard by the world and even having a military backing behind the truth. I see this as one of the greatest missions that a man can possibly accomplish in his life, more than getting along and not ruffling feathers. This is all about not hurting people's feelings. And today we're taught, don't hurt people's feelings, be sensitive towards people's feelings, be sensitive towards people's faiths, compromise, get along. I'm not told in the Quran to get along. I'm told to stand for truth always and forever, and to back up the truth with my life, and that is true virtue in the eyes of my Lord. So that's really what I'm talking about. This militant spirit is something that we don't just see in the Quran, but we see it in the ancient texts of the past. This is the wisdom we have received from our forebears. And one more verse to really cement, or I should say wrap up in a neat little bow tie all of these concepts I'm bringing together, is chapter 9, verse 33, to prove that the Quran teaches not just quiet pacifism, comfortably and easily, and you can do this if you want. There's no wrong in it, but I should say the highest state that a man can obtain is not quiet pacifism, just practicing his little faith in his little corner and never really talking about it or promoting it. But the highest attainment in the eyes of God is those who stand by their faith and promote it with their life, is chapter 9, verse 33, where the Quranic message is about bringing the faith to other people, to spreading it around the world. So we read, in the name of God, the Almighty and the Merciful. We'll start from chapter 9, verse 32. They want to extinguish the light of God with their mouths, and God refuses save to perfect his light, though the false claimers of guidance be averse. He it is that sent his messenger with the guidance and the doctrine of truth, that he might make it manifest over all doctrine, though the idolaters be averse. So is this quietism? Is this pacifism? Is this practicing in your corner quietly and just respecting all other people's faith? No. God wants us, he wants to use us as the instrument to make his creed manifest or clear or dominant over every other creed in the world, though the idolaters be averse. So basically, though you might be insensitive, though you might hurt people's feelings, though you might make them uncomfortable, he wishes for us to make known and establish the doctrine of God, the one God, the creator of the heavens and the earth, the commandments. So that is the Quranic mission, and that is the mission we carry on our backs as those who claim to believe in this holy book. And I think personally a lot of men are suffering nowadays because of this. Because we have this idea sold to us of that all battle, all fighting, even self-defense, fighting for yourself and your family, this stuff is bad and terrible and evil. Many people, they're suffering from depression because men, we need a war. We need something to fight for. And here we do have a war, but the war it's kind of passive aggressive. It's in the air. It's in the pernicious culture. We can't see the enemy right in front of us. Like, let's say back in the day with the children of Israel, they could see, okay, this is Pharaoh and the armies of Misr. Those people are bad. We are good. We hate these people. We want to see them destroyed. And God destroyed them for the children of Israel. But here you can't really put a face on it. It's kind of like, to quote Brother Sam Gerrans, it's like mustard gas, the war. It's in the air, the culture, the degeneracy, but you don't know where this is coming from. It's all around you. So if you can't put a face on the enemy, it's hard for you to understand that this is truly a war. And because of that, a lot of young men are suffering. They don't know what to do. They're left without any purpose, and they're just living life with the aimless passage of time, going from passing pleasure to passing pleasure to passing pleasure. And this weighs on the psyche. This destroys you on the inside because you weren't made for that. You were made for a higher purpose. And, we aren't made for comfort. We were made fundamentally to struggle for something meaningful. That's what gives our life a sense of joy and accomplishment, when we fight for things that mean something. Look at these men in the West. Let's just pull up an image of a soy boy. Or actually, you know what? Just pull up like random people wearing street fashion. Right? Look at these people. The men and women in the West. Really, I'm going to focus on the men here. Focused on their fashion, focused on their looks, focused on chasing after women. It's all about me, me, me. It's very self-centered, serving myself and my immediate day-to-day carnal satisfactions. Can these men fight in a war? No. They are so weakened and pacified. Their bodies are out of shape. Let me get another one right here. Their bodies are out of shape. They're emotional. They can't control their temperament for anything. They're entertainment junkies. Again, they're just seeking their day-to-day amusement. If they don't get their caffeine fix, they're done. They're totally addicted to these caffeines and these pills and these sugar highs. If they don't get it for a few days, they have no energy. They can't do anything. These men, they can't go a week without food. They can't survive a month-long famine. They can't go and hunt small game to feed themselves and their family. They don't know how to pitch a tent and put up shelter. They don't know even how to start a fire. They don't know basic survival skills. If this electrical grid system goes out, or let's say an army invades us from the east, these people are done. They're completely finished with. They will break. Their spirit will fall apart at the first sign of trouble. These men, they can't walk for 12 hours with only a few hours of sleep to escape a dangerous situation. They can't survive tough conditions. If rubber hits the road and all of the societal conveniences disappear in some disaster or invasion, and again, I told you, war is always in our nature. People will fight for what is theirs. Whether they're justified or not, people will fight. That's just the life of this world. These people, their families and themselves, they're toast. So I suppose the point of this video is for me to encourage the men out there to not be afraid of the masculinity that God put within you. If you feel within you this desire to fight evildoers, that's not bad, but in fact, that's totally natural and normal. Your Creator put that within you for His glorification and for you to attain true virtue and prudent fear, and for you to demonstrate to Him and to yourself whether you really believe in the things that you say, whether you really believe in God alone, or you don't think that God will protect you and keep you safe out there. And this is a totally masculine and natural urge, and the modern world is trying to get rid of that from us. And we can see this United Nations world peace message. It's very different from what the ancient wise men of the past, the wisdom they have left us. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that's really all I got to say on the matter. I hope this talk was a blessing. And yeah, peace to you. Remember, deceit abounds, so keep your eyes wide open. Peace out.